Hi, my name is Jimenez, and today I'll be talking about CARETS, a consistency and robustness evaluative test suite for VQA. This work is done by myself, Olga Russakovsky, and Karthik Narasimhan, all from Princeton University. The setting we're in is the visual question answering task, or VQA. VQA is concerned with querying vision and language models about arbitrary questions on images. Say, for example, we have this image of a dog, and we'd like to ask our model the question, is the dog wearing a collar? Or does the dog seem to be running or sitting? We would like our models to recognize the scene in the image, understand what the question is asking, and respond intelligently to each of these queries. Let's dig into this example a little bit more and think about what might be reasonable to expect from a VQA model. Say our model makes the right predictions for each of these examples. It's great. It seems like our model might have correctly understood the image in questions. However, testing on these two examples alone, we can't be too confident in our model just yet. Perhaps we were instead to ask the questions in a slightly different way, rephrasing it as, do you think the dog is wearing a collar? Or changing the order of arguments to, does the dog seem to be sitting or running? If our model is capable of understanding the original instances, it is reasonable to expect that it should generalize to these slightly changed but easily inferable cases as well. But what if our model does change its answers? This would indicate that our model either didn't properly recognize the scene, or that it's somehow failing to understand and properly relate our questions to the image. If we want to actually use our model, we should be confident that it will behave consistently in diverse language settings. This idea of measuring model behavior in response to minor changes to inputs motivates CARETS. We want to evaluate VQA models' consistency and robustness to minimal edits of the image or question and measure whether models behave expectedly. We can think about the basic VQA task as having instances consisting of an image question answer triple, as shown on the left. For CARETS, we want to introduce an evaluative setting where each test point is actually a pair of instances consisting of an original instance of an image question answer triple and a focused perturbation. By evaluating models not just on their base accuracy, but also on their consistency between relevant answers, we can get a better understanding of our model's true reasoning capabilities. CARETS consists of 6 tests in total, which fall into 2 task categories. Borrowing some terminology from checklist, the first of these categories is the invariance test. For these tests, we make a minor but semantics preserving edit to the original image or question, while the correct answer remains the same. So we expect models to generate the same answer between each instance pair for this test type. The second test category are the directional expectation tests. In this case, we again make a minor edit to the question's text, but in such a way that the correct answer also changes. So here the expected model behavior is that they'll also change their answer to be consistent. Now we'll look at some examples from each of these tests, starting with the invariance test category. We'll consider the image question pair shown on the left. There's an image of a cat watching television, and we have the question, what pose is the white cat doing? Sitting, standing, or lying? Notice that there are 2 cats in this image, so the white modifier disambiguates which one we're talking about. The first type of test we'll consider is the rephrasing invariance test. Here, the arguments of the question are the same, but we change the textual template used to generate the question, so the new question should be semantically equivalent to the original, but with a minor rephrasing. To generate the instance, would you say the white cat is sitting, standing, or lying? The next invariance test we consider is the ontological invariance test. For this case, notice that our original instance contains the argument cat, which is a hypernym of the larger category animal. We change the argument of the question cat to animal, which still preserves the validity of the original answer. The purpose of this test is to measure how well models' ontological knowledge remains intact for the VQA task. The next test, order invariance, changes the order of arguments in lists, conjunctions, or disjunctions in the question. Here it changes sitting, standing, or lying to standing, lying, or sitting. The purpose of this test is again to test how sensitive models are to this type of semantics preserving transformation. Lastly is the visual invariance test. For this test, we perform a perturbation to the image where the visual context of an image is distorted in some way. Here, we show an example of blurring the context so the of this question's subject, but we also perform other perturbations, such as cropping or masking the context as well. The idea for this test is that models should be invariant to certain contextual changes in the image as long as the primary subject is intact. Now we'll look at some examples for the directional expectation tests. For this category, we only have two test types, the antonym directional expectation test and the negation directional expectation test. For these tests, we'll consider a new question. Does the cat that is lying seem like it is mostly white? For the antonym directional expectation test, we replace an attribute to verify with an antonymical attribute that should be mutually exclusive with the original attribute. Here, for example, we replace the attribute white with black to generate the question, does the cat that is lying seem like it is mostly black? Where the model's answer to one question implies it should answer differently to another if it's behaving consistently. For the negation directional expectation test, we change the source question by introducing negation words that again produce an answer that should be different from the source. Here we expect models to correctly interpret the negated clauses of the new question and respond appropriately. Going briefly over some facts about the CARETS dataset, like the VQA dataset we build off of, we use text templates to generate different questions and include nearly 200 templates in total. We built our dataset using the visual genome dataset and scene graph annotations for validating models trained on the VQA dataset. We use the same images included in the VQA validation set, and we train all evaluated models on the VQA training dataset only. We show an example here of an image and subset of its scene graph annotations, which include objects, attributes, bounding boxes, and relations between them. Similar to the VQA dataset, each question is defined by a functional program and text template. The functional program encodes what the question means semantically and can be executed on a scene graph's annotation to retrieve the correct answer, while the text template generates the literal text of a question. We use this approach to generate and verify the appropriateness of answers for each of our perturbations, throwing out answers that don't satisfy the expected behavior. In addition to verifying question answers with the question's functional programs, we use a variety of generation constraints to ensure that the generated questions and answers are plausible and consistent with human judgment. For example, it is important to avoid generating question arguments with part-whole relationships that aren't fully captured by the annotations. This requires a constraint on the possible arguments to ensure that the generated answer isn't erroneous. We release CARETS with 90,000 generated total instance pairs with the following breakdown by test type. Since CARETS is concerned with measuring model consistency and robustness, not just base accuracy, we consider three core metrics when evaluating on CARETS instance pairs. The first is accuracy, which is simply the standard accuracy metric measured on all questions in a test, original and perturbed. The second is self-consistency, which measures whether models behave expectedly for the invariance and directional expectation tests. Note that self-consistency is concerned not with whether a model gets a particular instance correct, but that it is faithfully interpreting the question and answers consistently between the two instances of a pair, even if its predictions are incorrect. Lastly, we consider the metric comprehensive accuracy, which measures when models are both correct and consistent on an instance pair. We chose 6 competitive models and baselines to profile using CARETS, including a bilinear attention network, a CNN LSTM baseline, LXMERT, a multi-modal bitransformer, VILBERT, and VisualBERT. We chose these models because of their state-of-the-art performance and to compare a diversity of architectures and pre-training schemes. We'll briefly review some of the evaluation results and takeaways from using CARETS. Along with humans, we evaluate the 6 models on each of the tests. The first takeaway we'd like to highlight is that humans are substantially more self-consistent than models across all tests. This means that even when humans disagree with the generated label, they are consistent in their interpretations of each question. This is reflected by the fact that differences between accuracy and comprehensive accuracy in humans is frequently only a percentage point or two, compared with much larger differences for models. Another takeaway we'll highlight is related to model behavior on the order invariance tests. Models are surprisingly sensitive to the order of arguments for lists, conjunction, and disjunctions. Self-consistency for this test is only 64% on average, meaning that models change their answer to a question 36% of the time when the question's arguments are shuffled. Even for models initialized with powerful language comprehension components, such as BERT, they still seem to be sensitive to shuffling arguments. Now looking at the ontological invariance test, we see that models are also surprisingly sensitive to hypernym relations. On average, models change their answer 29% of the time when changing the argument's name with its hypernym. This suggests that models are not as good at leveraging their ontological capabilities when reasoning on VQA queries. Lastly, observing the negative directional expectation test and antonym directional expectation test, we see that models also have rather poor understanding of negation and antonym relationships. We provide further details of these results among additional analysis in our paper. Finally, we'd like to highlight that our evaluation and labeled question generation engine for CARETS will be available online on GitHub. CARETS can be used with the same datasets for the analysis in our paper. Furthermore, the generation engine utilizes YAML configuration files for easy extensibility, so users can add additional question types and text templates as they see new issues arise. In conclusion, we show that accuracy is not a sufficient metric for understanding VQA model capabilities and that consistency between instance pairs provides a platform for evaluating model robustness and consistency. We introduce CARETS as a test suite and software tool for evaluating VQA models and provide 90,000 test pairs for evaluation. Using CARETS, we show that models are surprisingly sensitive to a variety of perturbations, revealing vulnerabilities in even the strongest VQA models. Lastly, we highlight that CARETS is meant to be extended to further test new question types and templates for continuous evaluation of VQA models. We hope you read our paper and especially use CARETS to evaluate and improve your own VQA models. Thanks.